All right, I guess I could have done structure design in my VLSM lecture, but that's okay. Basically, structure design is how do I plan your network address for an IPv4 network? Because before you start subnetting, you need to understand your addressing scheme for your entire network. You need to know how many subnets you need. You need to know how many hosts per subnet, what kind of devices are part of that subnet, how much of this stuff is going to be private, how much of it's going to be public. So you want to make sure that when you're planning this, you're not only handling your immediate needs, but also looking at schemes that allow you to grow your network as time goes on. So you want to look at your usage, you want to look at how the subnets will be structured, and once you do that, that'll give you a starting point to decide how you're going to subnet your systems. But it's looking at the entire network, both the intranet, the DMZ, and determining how each area is going to be segmented. It's going to be routers, whatever the case may be. So it's looking at the entire environment before you start sitting down and trying to do an IP address plan. Now, with a corporate intranet, address conservation usually is not so much an issue. I mean, you got your internal network at IPv4 could have 16 million host combinations. So it's probably most organizations that's not going to be an issue. But if you're looking at, you still want to make sure that you're planning a network that maximizes your resources. So where required, you need to make sure your address plan determines the need of each subnet, determines its size, how many hosts you're going to need per subnet, and that's probably where you're going to look at that VLSM process to help minimize how to waste addresses. Because you're going to say which of the hosts is going to need DHCP, which ones are going to have to be statically assigned, because there's some things for security reasons you don't want addresses to servers to change. So you may hard code that versus let the DHCP set that up. So there's different devices you need to think about that require addresses. One, all your end devices need to have it. So using DHCP, you can pretty much reduce the burden of your network staff to kind of make sure the addresses are set. You got to look at your servers and peripherals, because these should be static IP addresses. And you want to make sure you use a consistent numbering system so that you're not confused, and definitely your end users aren't confused as to what's the address of the servers. Now, if there are servers that are going to be accessible from the internet, they need to be publicly available. So they got to be a public addresses versus a private address. Because remember, those private, if they're an internal server on a private network, they're not routed to the internet. So you got to understand which ones are accessible from the internet, which ones are not. Then you got to look at intermediary devices that are assigned addresses for network management and monitoring security. So what addresses did I give my switches and my routers so I can remotely get in? And then you got to remember your gateway, your default gateway. What is the address that I want to make sure is accessible to the internet? Typically, router interfaces uses either the lowest or the highest address in the network. I personally like the lowest, but preference. Some companies just up to you. So you're going to practice packet tracer, VLSM design. Just keep in mind, the biggest step of VLSM is knowing your needs. and routing, sequencing those largest to smallest to see what's your first biggest number of bits you're going to borrow to fit that largest subnet. And once you've organized all those, now you look at that last available, or one of the last remaining blocks, and then subnet that again, excuse me, to handle all the unique situations, router to router, servers, all of that stuff, so you're not wasting space in that. So hopefully I've given you enough information. I highly, highly, highly recommend you look at the other videos on examples of using subnetting. Look at that subnet.org link that I posted in the resource section to help you practice this. Giving you both repeated over and over and over practice questions. And if you have any questions, let me know. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.